So imagine you're in the room you're in at the moment, and on the right-hand side of the room, you go, that's you own your career. It's totally down to you. No one's going to help. The left-hand side of the room, it's the company's responsibility. They need to train you and work things out and promote you. Where would you be standing in the room?
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Ricky.
Hi, I'm Paul.
Well, today the question is, who owns your career?
Ooh.
Who does? Is it me? Is it you?
It's a tough question, actually. It's not a black or white, simple. No, it's your boss does or you do answer. So I want to do a little exercise with you. So play along.
Okay.
So imagine you're in the room you're in at the moment, and you've got like the left-hand side of the room and the right-hand side of the room. And on the right-hand side of the room, you go, that's you own your career. It's totally down to you. No one's going to help. The left-hand side of the room, it's the company's responsibility. They need to train you and work things out and promote you. Where would you be standing in the room? Are you on the company left side? Or are you on the personal right side? You smack bang in the middle?
Oh, I think. I'm kind of going, depending on where I am in my career, I think if I'm early in my career, I'm very much more in the company needs to train me, needs to develop me, needs to build me up. Whereas I feel right now, I'm probably more right side where it, and I don't know whether that's influenced by the fact we're a small business, so it's on me, on us, as opposed to the company. If I work for a corporate, would I expect the corporate to perhaps take more ownership? Maybe I would.
And it's a really interesting question that when we get to a lot of our corporate customers, and I think of, some of our large corporate customers that we work with, have amazing training programs and typically now have amazing online training available. So there's some really good big providers of online training like Harvard, who provide all this stuff that companies can buy and make available to all their employees. And typically when you talk to these organizations and go, how much does it get used? It's tiny.
Yeah.
It's like less than 1% of the people are logging in and using it on a regular basis. Because what we mean when we say the company owns my career is a very directed learning program. We mean that somebody, your boss normally, is saying, right, we're going to develop you in X. You will go on this course on this day, and then this person will help you, and all those kind of things. And then in 3 months' time, you'll be using it in your job. And that's still done to a certain extent. But the reason I think you thought that was earlier in your career is at the start of your career, when your skill base is pretty low, you've walked into the company is going to give you all of the training it needs to give you to become effective in the role it wants you to do today.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to go back to salespeople because we do a lot of work with salespeople, but it could be any role. It could be a finance person. You join, let's do finance. Let's pick a different thing. You join a company, you're in the finance department. They're probably going to send you to college. They're probably going to put you on day release. They're going to put you through your accountancy exams because they need you to have a core skill set to do the role they want you to do. But it's a short-term return on investment for the company. If they don't do it, you turn up every day and go, I don't know what I'm doing. How does this work?
Yeah. So you're kind of in that kind of position where you're probably going to need a lot of managing, and therefore you kind of go, well, what's the point in having you if you can't do the job that we're paying you to do?
Yeah. And typically, for most people, that's the start of our career. Whether we're, in a trade, whether we're, driving, whether we're fixing stuff, whether we're finance, whether we're IT, doesn't really matter what career you have. At the start of your career, someone's going to do that for you because they're going to hire you. They're probably not going to pay you very much. They're going to invest a lot of money in you and hope you'll stick around and use those skills for them.
Yeah, and I imagine at that level you kind of don't know what you don't know, so you probably need a bit more structure and guidance in terms of those early years of your career.
Yeah, you do, but if you think about it, there's nothing to stopping you do all the things we just talked about. You could do on your own. If I wanted to be a finance person, I could have just enrolled in a finance course and gone and got that training. But most people will go to a company and do it on day release.
Yeah.
If I want to be a salesperson, I could just go and learn sales skills. I mean, I think we live in a world where there is so much knowledge and material out there, so much free learning. Even universities now give away lectures, give away courses. There was a thing the other day where somebody was explaining, I think it's Oxford University they're attached to, and that in the charter that all lectures at Oxford University, I'm fairly sure they said all lectures at Oxford University were public lectures.
What?
The idea that actually anyone can go to them. I mean, you have to know when they're on and what's going on, but this kind of general idea that there is so much information out there. There's some big American universities that put lectures online that you can listen to, but most of us don't do any of that. We go, just tell me, boss, what I need to do,
and tell me when I need to do it.
Yeah. And so we take this view that the company owns our career. And part of that is, I think, because once upon a time, if you think about what a career was, it was joining a company and moving within that company at a pace and speed as set by that company. You joined it and then they went, you look all right. We'll put you on management development program. All right, I get another investment of training.
Yeah.
Oh, you're quite good. We're going to put you on another program to take you to senior management, and then we're going to give you that job. And so you basically did what they told you to do. And there's an idea now, known as the idea of a protean career, that's disappearing. That world of, job for life, which we probably don't even recognize anymore, but it's not even job for life now. Career for life is disappearing. That if you're 18 now, whatever you start doing as you leave school, it's a fairly good chance it's not even going to exist as a career when you retire.
Well, yeah, and I think that generally the younger generation definitely more transient in terms of their approach to their career. They want to be fulfilled by the role more than that job security piece. So they're more likely to look for more interesting things to do, and therefore actually a company can't own their career, can they?
Yeah, and I think there's an economic thing that sits behind that. I mean, I've read and seen some stuff, and I'm not going to pretend I really understand this, but the sort of economic bit behind it, when you and I got into the workplace, there was kind of a, and let's face it, you and I are
in black and white.
Yeah, I mean, we're not spring chickens or anything, but we got into the workplace. There was a unwritten agreement that actually what we did was we'd work hard, we'd be paid more money. At some point, we'd be able to buy a house, we'd be able to start a family. That was the deal. It wasn't, put up in lights or anything, but kind of everybody knew why we were doing what we were doing. And then it was really about how ambitious you are and how big a family you want and how big a house you want. And do you want 2 cars on the drive and, 3.2 kids and a dog and all that kind of stuff. And I'd hate to be 18 right now because that probably looks like a dream that's impossible to achieve.
And it's interesting because they don't see it like we see it because we have a paradigm that's very different, don't we?
Yeah. Because that dream is, if that dream is not possible, if I work really hard all my life and I actually still might not be buying a house, then why wouldn't I want to go, well, I need a job that's fulfilling and gives me new experiences and takes me places, and it allows me to renegotiate the contract between me and my employer. And I think that then fundamentally changes how we see career and what career is about. And we're, I guess, at the transition point between what it was, because I think about my parents. I remember my dad having to change job at one point in his career, and it was like a disaster had happened. Having to move companies was a real shock to him. Whereas actually for me, I've worked for 5 or 6 different companies, and I just see it as something I do. It's just really natural. And I started my career in one thing, then changed to something else, and now I'm a psychologist. That doesn't seem weird to me. But to my parents' generation, that would have been craziness.
Well, yeah. You are what you're trying to be, and you stuck at it, didn't you?
Yeah, and so I think for a generation coming through, it's going to be even more profound. The changes are going to be more difficult, and in some professions that we may not think about. You and I have recently spoke about, some of the stuff with things like chat. I forgot what it's called. The
Chat GPT.
Chat GPT. You go, that's gonna change a load of careers today, where people are employed for a basic level of knowledge and understanding that thing's going to do quicker and faster.
Well, that's really interesting because one of the HR directors that we work with sent me some statistics. Now, I don't know what the source of these are, but it says Generation Alpha, who will be entering the workplace in a couple of years' time.
It's a bit like number plates. We've gone all the way around and at the back again, haven't we?
Well, yeah, something like that. But Generation Alpha will be the largest generation in history, it says. 65% of them, their jobs don't currently exist, they reckon. 67% of them say that they want a job that saves the planet. And bear in mind, these are at school right now. 66% of them want to buy from companies that make a difference.
See, I find that really positive and hopeful. Don't get me wrong. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, God,
but it means that they're going to go into a workplace where very often they are going to have to own their own career. If they want to succeed and they want to do new things and move into new areas, they're going to have to own their own development, their own learning. They're going to have to own the challenges that come with that and move into new areas. And so you end up at the other end of the line. You end up at I can't remember which was left or which was right now, but the end that says it's down to me.
I think that was left.
And I think I look at it through the lens of going, I don't know. And I don't know which is left and right anyway. So I don't know why you say an example.
I had to work out with my hands.
Yeah. So.
And the tattoo I have on each of them.
Yeah. You've lost me now. But I think what I'm kind of saying is that you got this generation of kids coming through, but actually probably a lot of us who are having to say, my company is now only going to be responsible for the bit it needs me to do now. If it needs me to upskill to do the role in front of me, the chances are my employer is going to invest and get involved. But for a lot of us, that probably means our training is going to be restricted to rolling out new IT systems and, skills reliant to a program of activity the company's doing.
Yeah.
It's not going to be long-term growth stuff.
No, well, it's going to be now, like you say, now in the foreseeable future that we can predict with some degree of certainty.
Yeah.
But so if it is on me, then what sort of things should I be focused on? What sort of things could I be doing if my career's all on me, without going investing like you did and when, you know what, I'm going to retrain. I'm going to go from, a experienced technologist to retrain as a organizational psychologist. Not everybody's going to want to necessarily take that journey. So what are the practical things I could do just to focus on my career?
Well, I think firstly, it's the underlying piece is to invest in yourself and your soft skills. So think of this in terms of transferable skills. There are a number of skills that you could take out that you could use in the role you've got today that you can use in any role. And those skill sets will become A, more important as you become more senior, and B, more important as the world changes a lot and people go into different roles. So how much time and effort are you investing in influence, selling, interpersonal skills, difficult conversations, leadership skills? Because they're really important skills and they're going to be really important skills tomorrow. And it doesn't really matter if you completely change jobs.
But actually, that's quite interesting because our clients are asking for those types of things much more now than they would have done perhaps five plus years ago.
But let's put it like this. You're like me, right? You started in a completely different industry, in a different profession, right? But every day, there are things you learn in that industry and profession that are completely relevant to the work you do now and support and help you do the work you do now.
Yeah, oh, totally. That I would see that as my apprenticeship, and we're delivering this podcast. Oh, it won't go out in Apprentice Week, although we're recording it in Apprentice Week.
And I think it's, for me, it's getting a bigger focus on those. Now, if you're lucky enough to work for a really large company, the first thing I would do is go and find out what resources they have available, because almost every large corporate we work with has a pool of learning materials available for its staff that, like we said, are hardly utilised. And you can start diving into those. The other thing I would say is follow your interests. Because if you're going to develop yourself, if you're going to have to put time and effort in, because this is going to be on top of your day job. You think about my learning experience, I put a lot of time and effort in but I still worked. I still had to pay my bills. I still had to, feed myself, and the bank, didn't give me 3 years off the mortgage. All of that still had to be done. So you've got to want to do it, and therefore it's got to be interesting to you. So start thinking about what's of interest to you. What kind of areas are interesting to you? Be curious. And you can start really simply. Read. Go on YouTube and don't flick through the...
Listen to our podcast.
Listen to our podcast. Listen to lots of other podcasts.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the kind of crazy thing for me is the wealth of material and learning that is available to you now is just mind-blowing. I mean, the universities, the big learning institutions must be slightly panicking, because they must be looking at it and going, actually, everything we do here is probably on a podcast somewhere if somebody went and found it. So that's sort of the first bit. The second bit for me is think about what you do within your role, within your organization. When you and I, when older folk, went through their careers, the chances are they were, because of the way we worked, and it was slower, and it was different working practices, and it was probably more face-to-face than it is now. You were often in situations in the environment of more senior, more skilled, more people further along the journey than you, and you were in their presence. And we learn a lot from watching and listening to and being with other people.
That's interesting, because I think about when you say that, I've learned probably as much by being around at the time more senior people, listening to the way in which they articulated the issues and the challenges. I remember I made a sweeping generalization, and the customer service director at the time just cut me off at the knees and basically went, but that's not what the data says. And that was a real interesting lesson for me, because I go, actually, the world exists outside of my view of it, and I am only one piece. And therefore, actually, what I learned was, maybe I need to take a broader view of this. Maybe I need to look at, what other evidence supports my viewpoint or contradicts my viewpoint in terms of that. So it really did cause me to go, well, I'm not going to put myself in that position again. But it was a really interesting learning experience that I wouldn't have got had I been on a Teams call with a group and tuned out and checked my emails while everything else, I think, oh, I can't contribute, I won't get involved. What learning are you missing by tuning out?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's much, even if you're not tuned out on a Teams call, it's much harder to pick up on all that stuff. And you have to actively engage in it. But it's nothing stopping you. There's nothing stopping you messaging somebody in the middle of a Teams call and going, the person 3 levels up is talking about this. I don't understand what he's saying, or where does that fit? Or can I ask you a couple of questions about it? And because that stuff used to happen by a coffee machine, or I always think of an amazing conversation I had once with a CEO that I worked for. But we were in the back of a London cab. When I'm recalling the situation now, we were in a cab, and I've kind of got this guy for 15 minutes to myself, which was, you never got him for 15 minutes.
No, absolutely.
But we were going somewhere together in a cab, and it's like, I could have just sat there and talked about the weather. I didn't. I talked about the strategy, and I picked his brains. And maybe at the other end, he thought I was a complete idiot, but I learned and I grew and I came out of some stuff. My point being is, it's harder to do that now.
Oh, it is. It really is. I mean, I remember having a conversation with a main board director, and I was a little bit further on in my career, so I was a little bit more confident than I was earlier on with that customer service director. But we were having a real, not heated, but we were having a real argument, which is hard to believe from someone like me. But we were having a real interesting debate. We were having a real, thorough exploration of the issues and the facts. And the fact I was prepared to challenge, the fact I was prepared to explore, not necessarily be right, but because you were rarely right with this particular director, but actually it stood me in good stead, because by being able to have that dialogue and debate, he knew I was prepared to stand my corner. He knew I was prepared to have the conversation. And you don't get those opportunities quite the same way now.
No.
Similar to your back of the cab experience, except this was in the moment talking about a particular issue or challenge that we had and how we'd go about solving it. And we had two very different views of it.
And so my point being is that actually now to own your career means you have to go and seek those opportunities out.
Yes.
They used to just happen by accident because of the way the world works. That's not true anymore. You have to go and seek them out. And that means you have to put yourself in a position where you're ready for them. And I think that's about understanding your industry and your market. So, read up, if there's trade magazines, if there's things about your industry that you can study or read or just be aware of, or even just set some Google alerts so you know what's going on. It just puts you in a better place that when you are in an opportunity to have one of those conversations, you can more engage in it and you'll get more from it.
I agree. I think the other thing you've got in your armory is something like LinkedIn. You can reach out to people and who are in a similar industry, similar viewpoint. You could even track their posts, see what they think, what they're talking about, and that in itself will broaden your awareness, broaden your understanding. I think what it all boils down to for me is going, do you have a mindset that is focused on learning and growth and not expectation, I am going to be spoon-fed with everything I need? And you can have that mindset at any time in your career. That doesn't have to, you don't have to wait. You just get curious, go find out, go discover, go learn, go socialize what you learn. Because I think for me, I think about, we don't do it as much now because we don't travel quite as much in the car. But you and I used to have a horrible commute. And we used to talk a lot in the evening, and we'd talk about things, we'd socialize, and that would really help me to understand a topic in a bit more detail or how to solve a problem.
Yeah, and I think it's you've got to want to do it. Like I say, it's a mindset thing. You've got to leap in feet first, and it won't be all the time. There'll be points in your life, there'll be points in your career where you go, I'm too busy now, or I'm too tired, or I've got a project going on. But if you've got the underlying mindset, it will always come back to, well, what can I read? Who can I talk to? How can I involve somebody like on LinkedIn? I'm always amazed people don't reach out more. Experts, I'm loosely putting myself in that category, but you know what I'm like. If somebody asks me a question about the topics I know about, I'm not going to say no. I love talking about this stuff.
Yes, we've got about 2 million hours of podcast to validate that, haven't we?
But you've got to do all of that. And I want to just go to end this. I want to go back to this. The original question was, who owns your career? And the answer is, to doing what you're doing right now, it's fair to go, yeah, it's probably my employer's problem. If they need me to work on this new IT system, or they need me to fill out these new forms, they probably need to train me. But actually, for what comes next, it's got to be you. Because there is no career for life. There is no obvious next step. There is no just working through the steps. If you want to have an interesting and varied career, the onus is on you to create the skills to make that happen. Again,
coming back to that mindset loop, if your mindset's in the right place, yes, your employer might kind of have a vested interest in your short-term needs, but that don't mean you can't own your career.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you have to abdicate that and leave that to somebody else. Own your career is, take the opportunities that come your way in terms of your employer, but don't ignore your part in this process. If you want to be spoon-fed, then you'll be waiting a long time for the stuff that's really interesting, because you'll get what you need from your employer's perspective, not what you necessarily want.
I think you said it all.
Next time on The Question Is.
The clue is in the words talent management. It's about how do we unlock not just the talent of the individual, but the talent of the individual that supports our direction of travel, our purpose, and our goals for the year ahead.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organization, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.